Thanks so much for having me. I'm Celina Stewart, and I am the Director of Cyber Risk Management for Neuvik, which is a cybersecurity services company. And in my role, I specialize in advising companies on how to think about cyber risks. So that could be everything from conducting cyber risk assessments to actually building out strategic cybersecurity capabilities. And increasingly, I'm also starting to work with a number of companies who are thinking about how artificial intelligence plays into their cyber risk portfolio as well. We actually have two services. So, as I've mentioned, cyber risk management is one of them. And we also complement that with offensive security. And by that, we mean any kind of technical testing. So, penetration testing, red teaming, cloud Wi Fi assessments, and web application pen testing, among many other types of testing as well. And the key thing that I think everyone should know about Nuvik is that we really bring a blend of expertise. So, our practitioners, frankly, have a ton of experience in this business, over 20 years of collected experience, with many folks bringing even more from their previous roles as well. And so, one of the great things is we blend that deep, rich technical expertise. Many of our offensive practitioners are actually SANS instructors who teach on these topics. And as I mentioned in the cyber risk world, we have a number of folks like myself who have business backgrounds. And so, what we do is we blend that into a unique service offering for our customers, where not only do we do technical and non-technical cyber assessments, but we're also increasingly serving customers who want to bring cybersecurity into other parts of their business. So, for example, many of our core clients are large financial institutions or healthcare organizations, and a lot of them are currently undergoing quite a bit of mergers and acquisition work. And so, one of the things they're increasingly pulling us in is to actually do diligence work with them to understand what are those sources of risk that pose implications for this business deal, and how can they think about the actual financial implications from cybersecurity as part of that. Frankly, AI is a huge topic in the cybersecurity industry right now. And so, as an advisory services company, we're frankly handling questions all the time from customers who are thinking about what AI means for their business, and again, what AI means from a risk perspective. And so, there's a couple ways we're handling this. Obviously, from the technical side, we're certainly offering a number of assessments, whether that's, again, penetration testing the AI tools themselves, thinking through how AI integrates with their network environment and looking for any configuration issues. So, very much from a technical perspective, actually conducting assessments on AI tools themselves. And then on the cyber risk piece, as I mentioned, we're starting to talk through a lot of how AI is actually changing the risk landscape, whether that's, increased social engineering activities, could be part of tabletop exercises where we've actually seen a number of clients looking to actually start prepping their executive teams for what would it look like if deepfakes were actually to be used in an incident against your company. And so I've been a part of a number of those tabletop exercises. And so we're really covering everything again from an advisory perspective on assessments, being a trusted thought partner, and then actually starting to help them build out these strategic capabilities so that when AI does become a risk that they're seeing in their organization, they're prepared and actually able to address that risk head on. Essentially, what happened was an employee based out of Hong Kong who had never met the leadership team, but often worked with the executive team. Essentially received what they initially thought was a phishing email. They did their diligence, they tried to press a little bit, and actually ended up on what they thought was a video conference call with the executive team, including this chief financial officer who they thought was initiating this request. And so what ultimately happened was, because they were on this video conference, they were convinced that this was a legitimate request coming from this executive leader, and they actually made a transfer of about $25 million equivalent in Hong Kong currency, which frankly they only realized when they actually checked up with the head office of the bank to make sure that the transfer had gone through later. And so there are a couple key takeaways about why this is so scary. Number one, this employee tried to do everything right from the beginning, right? They thought maybe this was a phishing email. They tried to validate it by actually getting in what they thought was a video conference with the right people. And so, of course, the key thing to know here is the video conference was actually a very sophisticated deep fake where the scammer had actually gone to all of the effort of actually replicating video and cloning some of the audio from this executive in question. And so this is a great example where that employee theoretically did the baseline checks they should have, thought they were receiving a legitimate request, and ultimately a significant amount of money was transferred as the result. One of the other things that I'm seeing a lot of is insider threat, whether that's malicious insiders, so folks who are actually poisoning the baselines that AI is trained on to do things like see anomalous behavior actually as normal and therefore allow, for example, malware to run on certain systems. We're also seeing a lot of negligent insider threat use cases from AI. So things like users just not being aware that maybe they're incorporating bad artifacts if they're pulling from generative AI into work product. And that could be things like hallucinations. I work a lot with companies that are doing software development. And so they're thinking about how do we avoid building on dependencies, for example, in thousands of lines of code where they just can't have humans review them. And so how do you avoid building in those things that AI is retrieving that just should not be incorporated in your work product? So those are two of the core headlines. And then lastly, I would also say that a lot of companies are not yet thinking about AI from an asset management and almost a third party perspective. And that's one thing that Neuvik finds time and time again from a risk management perspective is not only are companies not thinking about third parties that they know and are aware and have contracts with, but they're not thinking about AI as a third party because AI is still processing huge amounts of your company data. They're integrated with a number of your different systems. And so if you're not aware of what those AI tools are, you're not keeping an inventory, you're not doing a risk assessment on them, you're really missing out on the opportunity to think about what those implications are for your business. And again, from a risk perspective. So whether again, it's deep fakes and social engineering, or it's something related to insider threat or third party risk management, we just see a lot of opportunity for companies, again, to start thinking critically about what their security program is doing. And again, looking for those trusted advisors. And frankly, that's where Neuvik is playing a large role. And we hope to partner with a number of organizations to keep them safe and kind of help them think through some of those issues.